Hey, Clean Connection fam.
Hello.
Today we're in beautiful, rainy Southern California. I thought they said it never rains.
I heard the song It Never Rains in Southern California, but apparently it does.
And today we have a bit of a surprise for you. We are at the 37th President of the United States. Guess who it is? At their presidential library.
Who is it?
Oh, well, see if you know. Can you leave in the comments below? If you're a Gen Xer like us, he's one of the 4 presidents that you were born under his time as the president.
I know who it is.
We know who it is. So we're going to get out of the rain here and go inside, but let's check out the 37th President of the United States of America. If you guessed that the 37th President of the United States was Richard Milhouse Nixon, you are correct. He was the president from 1968 to 1973, and he's one of 4 Gen X presidents that when you were born in Gen X, between 1965 and 1980, he was one of them. The others being Lyndon Johnson. Obviously, you have Richard Nixon, you have Jerry Ford, and you have Jimmy Carter. So we're going to explore the museum, check it out. There's a cool interactive video. Unfortunately, I can't videotape in there. It's kind of dark. We're going to check that out, and then we're going to check out the museum. Also, a little note that this was the President of the United States when both Shana's father served in the Navy and also my father served in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. So in this part of the museum is the precursor to the rest of the story of Nixon. Starts off in the 1960s with the Vietnam War, civil rights, women's rights, things of that nature, and then works its way through until he swears his presidency on January 20th, 1969, taking over for Lyndon Johnson.
This means black and white together, one nation, not superior. The lies have caught up with our country. What remains
Now we're in the Vietnam War section. Nixon was essentially the last president during the Vietnam War. A little bit, yes, did go into Gerald Ford, especially the evacuation of Saigon, but for all intents and purposes, the last real combat era president for the Vietnam War was Richard Nixon. The display here talks about him ending the draft as well as freeing the prisoners, working with the North Vietnamese in the Paris Peace Accords to release the prisoners that were held in North Vietnam, and then also Vietnamization, where they were turning the war over to the South Vietnamese and American forces were pulling out. When Nixon became president, there were over 500,000 Americans that were in Vietnam at the time, and he de-escalated the war. He just entered the Oval Office. It's made to look like when Nixon was in office in 1969. Now, Nixon's domestic policy was also pretty good. He was great at setting up things like the Environmental Protection Agency and OSHA, and he also had a number of different issues going on in the Middle East at the time. And he had met with Anwar Sadat, who was the leader of Israel, and there was the Yom Kippur War that happened under his time as the president. So there was a lot of crazy stuff going on in the late 60s, early 70s, and Nixon was really up for the challenge. if you've been following our channel for any amount of time, you'll know that Shana and I both went to the Houston Space Center as well as the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And Nixon was the President of the United States during the Apollo 11 mission, that landed on the moon. And behind me is not only pictures of Nixon with the astronauts held in some sort of containment, but also moon rocks and other information from the Apollo 11 exploration. Now, a number of these paintings and pictures are from Nixon's times in office, but some of the really cool ones you can see here are like Nixon playing golf, building a snowman with a disabled veteran, I'm assuming Vietnam, missing his legs. And this one here is really interesting. You can see behind me, it's Pat Nixon with Big Bird, because public television was just coming out at the time, and Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, all that stuff was soon to come out. So Jim Henson had a direct connection to Mr. and Mrs. Nixon. If you can see here, this is the replica Colt 45 that Elvis tried to bring into the building, to the White House, to give to President Nixon. And there's all sorts of other interesting memorabilia. I don't think this one worked out really well. Think metric. The United States never embraced the metric system, but there's all sorts of neat little knickknacks and stuff. So the next part of the museum that we're going to go into is the one that everybody talks about, and that's Watergate. Now, I don't want you to think that Watergate is the only thing that defines Richard Nixon's presidency, but it is a big part of it, being that he was the only president that ever resigned from office. It's still a very touchy subject, especially for older generations of people, but we're going to kind of go in because it's part of his presidency. Now, Nixon, being the only president from Southern California, really didn't grow up with a lot of money. He did serve in the military during World War II in the United States Navy, and he had a brother that died as a child, and then also had another brother who passed away when Nixon was 18. So he had definitely lost two brothers in his lifetime. Now, in this portion of the museum is when Nixon was actually running for president against JFK and lost. And it was the first televised presidential debate. And you can see behind me that Kennedy looks young. Nixon is still young, but he's, he's not as attractive as Kennedy. So Kennedy, a lot of people say this helped Kennedy get into the presidency. It's a very, very famous thing that happened in American history, the first televised presidential debate. Now you have to remember, Nixon wasn't even 40 when he became vice president of the United States under Dwight Eisenhower. So he did have experience, but we can debate that all day long. We also have to remember that Nixon came up as a vice president in a time that the world had just ended the World War. I mean, he had gone from a naval officer to the vice president of the United States in, 7 years? And he got to meet people like Winston Churchill and Charles de Gaulle. So he definitely had touched history before becoming history himself. Now, later in his life, Nixon also consulted a bunch of other presidents about just presidential things. I mean, think about it. There's not that many that are alive, so it's nice to reach out to somebody that's been there and done that. But he had consulted with Ronald Reagan and George Bush, and even up to Bill Clinton. So when he passed away in 1994, so he kept touch with a lot of these former presidents, and they all kind of consult. So don't let them fool you that they don't talk to each other. They all talk to each other. It's a very small group of people. Out here is the garden and the reflection pool for the outside part of the library. The rain has stopped enough that it's going to allow me to come out and check this out, although I do not want to walk in this dirt. So I'm going to step back here, take a video of the reflection pool. Now, the National Park Service that runs the place was very limited, so I apologize if they don't allow us to bring certain camera equipment in. They're just not allowing it right now. Here is the house that Richard Nixon was actually born in California. Like the lady said earlier during our tour, that he was the only president of the United States that is originally from California. Yes, Ronald Reagan lived here, but he wasn't originally from California. So Nixon's house that he was born in, very, very small, and it looked like there was, a sizable size family. He did have two brothers. Like I said earlier, his two brothers passed away, and one passed away when he was a child, and the other one passed away when Nixon was around 18 years old. Now, here's a bit of a trivia question for you guys, and if you get it, leave it in the comments section below, and we will draw a lucky name for a person that will win this contest. And we want to know, what was the name of Richard Nixon's dog when he was president? What was the name of Richard Nixon's dog? Leave it in the comments below, and we'll randomly pick somebody, and they will win a free Clean Connection travel tag for their luggage. So what was the name of Richard Nixon's dog? Leave it below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. So this is the famous helicopter that Nixon, did his wave goodbye. Unfortunately, because of the rain and the metal, we can't get up there to take a picture, but some people go up and they do the famous Richard Nixon pose. Sorry, no Richard Nixon pose from me or Shana. I think that's as close as you're going to get, but she's a lot better looking than Richard Nixon. The jowl, it's the jowl.
A little dirty inside. It needs to be cleaned.
The president didn't do a good job with his helicopter.
He did. His pilot didn't keep it clean.
We got to wash the carpet.
Yeah.
They got carpet in there.
This is a depiction of the Casa Pacifica, which is in San Clemente, is the house that the Nixons bought after Richard, after he resigned. And San Clemente is where we were. And we visited the Casa Romantica. This is called La Casa Pacifica.
So that about wraps up our tour of the Richard M. Nixon Presidential Library.
Yeah, what a cool place to come. I didn't know that the presidential libraries weren't actually libraries.
Well, I think they store some books.
I mean, they store some books, but it's more like a museum. Like, you get to see artifacts and stuff from, like, when the president was president.
Right. And remember our challenge. If you can name Richard Nixon's dog, the one he had as president of the United States, leave it in the comments section below. And we'll pick one lucky guest or one lucky follower to get a special travel tag designed directly from Shana.
Yes, that's right. I have a bunch of them to give out, so keep watching the Clean Connection for your travel tag.
And if you like what you saw, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Rumble. You can also follow us on TikTok, and go to our website, cleanconnection.com. And until next time,
You don't want to miss another Clean Connection episode.
have fun storming the castle.
Bye, guys.